I walk to the bus station by myself. There's always a fuss over my paperwork when I leave. All summer long, we're not even allowed to walk to Tesco's without a chaperone and permission from the Queen. Then, in the autumn, I just sign myself out of the children's home and go. He goes to a special school, one of the office ladies explains to the other when I leave. They're sitting in a plexiglass box, and I slide my papers back to her through a slot in the wall. "It's a school for dire offenders," she whispers. The other woman doesn't even look up. It's like this every September, even though I'm never in the same care home twice. The mage fetched me for school himself the first time, when I was 11. But the next year, he told me I could make it to Watford on my own. "You've slain a dragon, Simon. Surely you can manage a long walk and a few buses." I hadn't meant to slay that dragon. It wouldn't have hurt me, I don't think. I still dream about it sometimes, the way the fire consumed it from the inside out, like a cigarette burn eating a piece of paper. I get to the bus station, then eat a mint aero while I wait for my first bus. There's another bus after that, then a train. Once I'm settled on the train, I try to sleep with my bag in my lap and my feet propped up on the seat across from me. But a man a few rows back won't stop watching me. I feel his eyes crawling up my neck. Could just be a pervert. Or police. Or it could be a bounty hunter who knows about one of the prices on my head. "It's bounty hunter," I said to Penelope the first time we fought one. "No, bounty hunter," she replied. "Short for bone teeth. That's what they get to keep if they catch you." I change carriages and don't bother trying to sleep again. The closer I get to Watford, the more restless I feel. Every year I think about jumping from the train and spelling myself the rest of the way to school, even if it puts me in a coma. I could cast a "hurry up" on the train, but that's a chancy spell at the best of times, and my first few spells of the school year are always especially dicey. I'm supposed to practice during the summer. Small, predictable spells when no one's looking, like turning on nightlights or changing apples to oranges. "Spell your buttons and laces closed," Miss Possibelf suggested. "That sort of thing." "I only ever wear one button," I told her, then blushed when she looked down at my jeans. "Then use your magic for household chores," she said. "Wash the dishes, polish the silver." I didn't bother telling Miss Possibelf that my summer meals are served on disposable plates and that I eat with plastic cutlery, forks and spoons, never knives. I also didn't bother to practice my magic this summer. It's boring and pointless, and it's not like it helps. Practicing doesn't make me a better magician. It just sets me off. Nobody knows why my magic is the way it is. Why it goes off like a bomb instead of flowing through me like a fucking stream, or however it works for everybody else. "I don't know," Penelope said when I asked her how magic feels for her. "I suppose it feels like a well inside me, so deep that I can't see or even imagine the bottom. But instead of sending down buckets, I just think about drawing it up, and then it's there for me, as much as I need, as long as I stay focused." Penelope always stays focused. Plus, she's powerful. Agatha isn't. Not as, anyway. And Agatha doesn't like to talk about her magic. But once, at Christmas, I kept Agatha up until she was tired and stupid, and she told me that casting a spell felt like flexing a muscle and keeping it flexed. "Like croiser devant," she said. "You know?" I shook my head. She was lying on a wolfskin rug in front of the fire, all curled up like a pretty kitten. "It's ballet," she said. "It's like I just hold position as long as I can." Baz told me that for him, it's like lighting a match, or pulling a trigger. He hadn't meant to tell me that. It was when we were fighting the chimera in the woods during our 5th year. It had us cornered, and Baz wasn't powerful enough to fight it alone. The mage isn't powerful enough to fight a chimera alone. "Do it, Snow!" Baz shouted at me. "Do it! Fucking unleash! Now!" "I can't," I tried to tell him. "It doesn't work like that." "It bloody well does. I can't just turn it on," I said. "Try." "I can't, damn it." I was waving my sword around. I was pretty good with a sword already at 15, but the chimera wasn't corporeal, which is my rough luck pretty much always. As soon as you start carrying a sword, all your enemies turn out mist and gossamer. "Close your eyes and light a match," Baz told me. We were both trying to hide behind a rock. Baz was casting spells one after another. He was practically singing them. "What?" "That's what my mother used to say," he said. "Light a match inside your heart, then blow on the tinder." It's always fire with Baz. I can't believe he hasn't incinerated me yet, or burned me at the stake. He used to like to threaten me with a Viking's funeral, back when we were third years. "Do you know what that is, Snow? A flaming pyre set adrift on the sea. We could do yours in Blackpool, so all your chavvy normal friends can come." "Sod off," I'd say, and try to ignore him. I've never even had any normal friends, chavvy or otherwise. Everyone in the normal world steers clear of me if they can. Penelope says they sense my power and instinctively shy away, like dogs who won't make eye contact with their masters. Not that I'm anyone's master, that's not what I mean. Anyway, it works the opposite with magicians. They love the smell of magic. I have to try hard to make them hate me. Unless they're Baz. He's immune. Maybe he's built up a tolerance to my magic, having shared a room with me every term for 7 years. That night we were fighting off the chimera. Baz kept yelling at me until I went off. We both woke up a few hours later in a blackened pit. The boulder we'd been hiding behind was dust, and the chimera was vapor. Or maybe it was just gone. Baz was sure I'd singed off his eyebrows, but he looked fine to me. Not a hair out of place. Typical. 2. Simon. I don't let myself think about Watford over the summers. After my first year there, when I was 11, I spent the whole summer thinking about it. Thinking about everyone I'd met at school, Penelope, Agatha, the mage, about the towers and the grounds, the teas, the puddings, the magic, the fact that I was magic. I made myself sick thinking about the Watford School of Magics, daydreaming about it, until it started to feel like nothing more than a daydream, just another fantasy to make time pass. Like when I used to dream about becoming a footballer someday, or that my parents, my real parents, were going to come back for me. My dad would be a footballer, and my mum would be some posh model type, and they'd explain how they'd had to give me up because they were too young for a baby and because his career was on the line. "But we always missed you, Simon," they'd say. "We've been looking for you." And then they'd take me away to live in their mansion. Footballer mansion. Magical boarding school. They both seem like crap in the light of day. Especially when you wake up in a room with 7 other discards. That first summer, I'd beaten the memory of Watford to a bloody pulp by the time my bus fare and papers showed up in the autumn, along with a note from the mage himself. Real. It was all real. So, the next summer, after my second year at Watford, I didn't let myself think about magic at all. For months, I just shut myself off from it. I didn't miss it. I didn't wish for it. I decided to let the world of mages come back to me like a big surprise present come September, if it was going to. And it did come back. It always has, so far. The mage used to say that maybe someday he'd let me spend summers at Watford, or maybe even spend them with him wherever he goes all summer. But then he decided I was better off spending part of every year with the normals, to stay close to the language and to keep my wits about me. Let hardship sharpen your blade, Simon. I thought he meant my actual blade, the sword of mages. Eventually I figured out that he meant me. I'm the blade, the mage's sword. And I'm not sure if these summers in children's homes make me any sharper, but they do make me hungrier. They make me crave Watford like, I don't know, like life itself. Baz and his side, all the old rich families, they don't believe that anyone can understand magic the way that they do. They think they're the only ones who can be trusted with it. But no one loves magic like I do. None of the other magicians, none of my classmates, none of their parents know what it's like to live without magic. Only I know, and I'll do anything to make sure it's always here for me to come home to. Anyway, I try not to think about Watford when I'm away, but it was almost impossible this summer. After everything that happened last term, I couldn't believe the mage would even pay attention to something like the end of term. Who interrupts a war to send the kids home for summer holidays? Besides, I'm not a kid anymore. Legally, I could have left care at 16. I could have got my own flat somewhere, maybe in London. I could afford it. I have an entire bag of leprechaun's gold, a big duffel-sized bag, and it only disappears if you try to give it to other magicians. But the mage sent me off to a new children's home, just like he always does, still moving me around like a pea under shells after all these years. Like I'd be safe there. Like the humdrum couldn't just summon me, or whatever it was he did to me and Penelope at the end of last term. "He can summon you?" Penny demanded as soon as we got away from him. "Across a body of water? That isn't possible, Simon. There's no precedent for that." "Next time he summons me like a half-assed squirrel demon," I shouted, "I'll tell him so." Penelope had been unlucky enough to be holding my arm when I was snatched, so she'd been snatched right along with me. Her quick thinking is the only reason either of us escaped. "Simon," she said that day, when we were finally on a train back to Watford, "this is serious." "Siegfried and fucking Roy, Penny. I know that it's serious. He's got my number. I don't even have my number, but the humdrum's got it down." "How can we still know so little about him?" she fumed. "He's so insidious," I said. "The insidious humdrum and all that." "Stop teasing, Simon. This is serious." "I know, Penny." When we got back to Watford, the mage heard us out and made sure we weren't hurt, but then he sent us on our way. Just sent us home. It didn't make any sense. So, of course, I spent this whole summer thinking about Watford, about everything that happened and everything that could happen and everything that's at stake. I stewed on it, but I still didn't let myself dwell on any of the good things, yeah? It's the good things that will drive you mad with missing them. I keep a list of all the things I miss most, and I'm not allowed to touch it in my head until I'm about an hour from Watford. Then I run through the list one by one. It's sort of like easing yourself into cold water, but the opposite of that, I suppose, easing yourself into something really good so the shock of it doesn't overwhelm you. I started making my list, my good things list, when I was 11, and I should probably cross a few things off, but that's harder than you'd think. Anyway, I'm about an hour from school now, so I mentally take out my list and press my forehead against the train window. Things I miss most about Watford. Number 1, sour cherry scones. I'd never had cherry scones before Watford, just raisin ones, and more often plain, and always something that came from the shop, then got left in an oven too long. At Watford, there are fresh-baked cherry scones for breakfast every day if you want them, and again in the afternoon with tea. We have tea in the dining hall after our lessons, before clubs and football and homework. I always have tea with Penelope and Agatha, and I'm the only one of us who ever eats the scones. "Dinner is in 2 hours, Simon," Agatha will tisk at me, even after all these years. Once, Penelope tried to calculate how many scones I've eaten since we started at Watford, but she got bored before she got to the answer. I just can't pass the scones up if they're there. They're soft and light and a little bit salty. Sometimes I dream about them. Number 2. Penelope. This spot on the list used to belong to roast beef, but a few years back I decided to limit myself to one food item. Otherwise the list turns into the food song from Oliver, and I get so hungry my stomach cramps. I should maybe rank Agatha higher than Penelope. Agatha is my girlfriend, but Penelope made the list first. She befriended me in my first week at school, in magic words class. I didn't know what to make of her when we met. A chubby little girl with light brown skin and bright red hair. She was wearing pointy spectacles, the kind you'd wear if you were going as a witch to a fancy dress party, and there was a giant purple ring weighing down her right hand. She was trying to help me with an assignment, and I think I was just staring at her. "I know you're Simon Snow," she said. "My mum told me you'd be here. She says you're really powerful, probably more powerful than me. I'm Penelope Bunce." "I didn't know someone like you could be named Penelope," I said, stupidly. Everything I said that year was stupid. She wrinkled her nose. "What should someone like me be named?" "I don't know." I didn't know. Other girls I'd met who looked like her were named Sanvi or Aditi, and they definitely weren't Ginger. Sanvi? "Someone like me can be named anything," Penelope said. "Oh," I said. "Right, sorry." "And we can do whatever we want with our hair." She turned back to the assignment, flipping her red ponytail. "It's impolite to stare, you know, even at your friends." "Are we friends?" I asked her, more surprised than anything else. "I'm helping you with your lesson, aren't I?" She was. She'd just helped me shrink a football to the size of a marble. "I thought you were helping me because I'm thick," I said. "Everyone's thick," she said. "I'm helping you because I like you." It turned out she'd accidentally turned her hair that colour, trying out a new spell, but she wore it red all of first year. Then next year, she tried blue. Penelope's mum is Indian, and her dad is English. Actually, they're both English. The Indian side of her family has been in London forever. She told me later that her parents told her to steer clear of me at school. "My mum said that nobody really knew where you came from, and that you might be dangerous." "Why didn't you listen to her?" I asked. "Because nobody knew where you came from, Simon, and you might be dangerous." "You have the worst survival instincts." "Also, I felt sorry for you," she said. "You were holding your wand backwards." I miss Penny every summer, even when I tell myself not to. The mage says no one can write to me or call me over the holidays, but Penny still finds ways to send me messages. Once, she possessed the old man down at the shop, the one who forgets to put his teeth in. She talked right through him. It was nice to hear from her and everything, but it was so disturbing that I asked her not to do it again unless there was an emergency. Number 3. The football pitch. I don't get to play football as much as I used to. I'm not good enough to play on the school team. Plus, I'm always caught up in some scheme or drama or out on a mission for the mage. You can't reliably tend a goal when the bloody humdrum could summon you any time it strikes his fancy. But I do get to play. And it's a perfect pitch. Lovely grass. The only flat part of the grounds. Nice, shady trees nearby that you can sit under and watch the matches. Baz plays for our school, of course, the tosser. He's the same on the field as he is everywhere else. Strong, graceful, fucking ruthless. Number 4. My school uniform. I put this on the list when I was 11. You have to understand, when I got my first uniform, it was the first time I'd ever had clothes that fit me properly. The first time I'd ever worn a blazer and tie. I felt tall all of a sudden, and posh. until Baz walked into our room, much taller than me and posher than everyone. There are 8 years at Watford. First and second years wear striped blazers, 2 shades of purple and 2 shades of green, with dark grey trousers, green jumpers and red ties. You have to wear a boater on the grounds up until your 6th year, which is really just a test to see if your stay put is strong enough to keep a hat on. Penny always spelled mine on for me. If I did it myself, I'd end up sleeping in the damn thing. There's a brand new uniform waiting for me every autumn when I get to our room. It'll be laid out on my bed, clean and pressed and perfectly fitted, no matter how I've changed or grown. The upper years, that's me now, wear green blazers with white piping, plus red jumpers if we want them. Capes are optional too. I've never worn one, they make me feel like a tit, but Penny likes them, says she feels like Stevie Nicks. I like the uniform. I like knowing what I'm going to wear every day. I don't know what I'll wear next year, when I'm done with Watford. I thought I might join the Mage's men. They've got their own uniforms, sort of Robin Hood meets MI6, but the Mage says that's not my path. That's how he talks to me. It's not your path, Simon. Your destiny lies elsewhere. He wants me to stand apart from everyone else. Separate training, separate classes. I don't think he'd even let me go to school at Watford if he weren't the headmaster there, and if he didn't think it was the safest place for me. If I asked the Mage what I should wear after Watford, he'd probably kick me out like a superhero. I'm not asking anybody what I should wear when I leave. I'm 18. I'll dress myself. Or Penny will help. Number 5. My room. I should say our room, but I don't miss the sharing with Baz part of it. You get your room and your roommate assigned at Watford as a first year, and then you never move. You never have to pack up your things or take down your posters. Sharing a room with someone who wants to kill me, who's wanted to kill me since we were 11, has been, well, it's been rubbish, hasn't it? But maybe the Crucible felt bad about casting Baz and me together. Not literally. I don't think the Crucible's sentient, because we've got the best room at Watford. We live in Mama's house, on the edge of school grounds. It's a 4.5-story building, stone, and our room is at the very top, in a sort of turret that looks out over the moat. The turret's too small for more than one room, but it's bigger than the other student rooms. And it used to be staff accommodation, so we have our own ensuite. Baz is actually a fairly decent person to share a bathroom with. He's in there all morning, but he's clean, and he doesn't like me to touch his stuff, so he keeps it all out of the way. Penelope says our bathroom smells like cedar and bergamot, and that's got to be Baz because it definitely isn't me. I'd tell you how Penny manages to get into our room. Girls are banned from the boys' houses and vice versa. But I still don't know. I think it might be her ring. I saw her use it once to unseal a cave, so anything's possible. Number 6. The Mage. I put the Mage on this list when I was 11 too, and there have been plenty of times when I thought I should take him off. Like in our 6th year, when he practically ignored me. Every time I tried to talk to him, he told me he was in the middle of something important. He still tells me that sometimes. I get it. He's the headmaster. And he's more than that. He's the head of the coven, so technically he's in charge of the whole world of mages. And it's not like he's my dad. He's not my anything. But he's the closest thing I've got to anything. The Mage is the one who first came to me in the normal world and explained to me, or tried to explain to me, who I am. He still looks out for me, sometimes when I don't even realize it. And when he does have time for me, to really talk to me, that's when I feel the most grounded. I fight better when he's around. I think better. It's like, when he's there, I almost buy into what he's always told me. That I'm the most powerful magician the world of mages has ever known. And that all that power is a good thing. Or at least that it will be someday. that I'll get my shit together eventually and solve more problems than I cause. The mage is also the only one who's allowed to contact me over the summer, and he always remembers my birthday in June. Number 7. Magic. Not my magic, necessarily. That's always with me, and honestly not something I can take much comfort in. What I miss when I'm away from Watford is just being around magic. Casual, ambient magic. People casting spells in the hallway and in class. Somebody sending a plate of sausages down the dinner table like it's bouncing on wires. The world of mages isn't actually a world. We don't have cities or even neighbourhoods. Magicians have always lived among mundanity. It's safer that way, according to Penelope's mum. It keeps us from drifting too far from the rest of the world. The fairies did that, she says. Got tired of dealing with everybody else, wandered into the woods for a few centuries, then couldn't find their way back. The only place magicians live together, unless they're related, is at Watford. There are a few magical social clubs and parties, annual gatherings, that sort of thing, but Watford is the only place where we're together all the time, which is why everyone's been pairing off like crazy in the last couple of years. If you don't meet your spouse at Watford, Penny says, you could end up alone, or going on singles tours of magical Britain when you're 32. I don't know what Penny's even worried about. She's had a boyfriend in America since our 4th year. He was an exchange student at Watford. Micah plays baseball, and he has a face so symmetrical you could summon a demon on it. They video chat when she's home, and when she's at school. He writes to her almost every day. Yes, she tells me, but he's American. They don't think about marriage the way we do. He might dump me for some pretty normal he meets at Yale. Mum says that's where our magic is going, bleeding out through ill-considered American marriages. Penny quotes her mum as much as I quote Penny. They're both being paranoid. Micah's a solid bloke. He'll marry Penelope. And then he'll want to take her home with him. That's what we should all be worried about. Anyway, magic. I miss magic when I'm away. When I'm by myself, magic is something personal. My burden, my secret. But at Watford, magic is just the air that we breathe. It's what makes me part of something bigger, not the thing that sets me apart. Number 8. Ebb and the goats. I started helping out Ebb, the goat herd, during my 2nd year at Watford, and for a while, hanging out with the goats was pretty much my favourite thing, which Baz had a field day with. Ebb's the nicest person at Watford. Younger than the teachers, and surprisingly powerful for somebody who decided to spend her life taking care of goats. What does being powerful have to do with anything? Ebb will say. People who are tall aren't forced to play thrash-can ball. You mean basketball? Living at Watford means Ebb's a bit out of touch. Same difference. I'm no soldier. Don't see why I should have to fight for a living just because I can throw a punch. The mage says we're all soldiers, every one of us with an ounce of magic. And that's what's dangerous about the old ways, he says. Magicians just went about their merry way doing whatever they felt like doing, treating magic like a toy or an entitlement, not something they had to protect. Ebb doesn't use a dog with the goats, just her staff. I've seen her turn the whole herd with a wave of her hand. She'd started teaching me how to pull the goats back one by one, how to make them all feel at once like they'd gone too far. She even let me help with the birthing one spring. I don't have much time to spend with Ebb anymore, but I leave her and the goats on my list of things to miss, just so that I can stop for a minute and think about them. Number 9. The Wavering Wood. I should take this one off the list. Fuck the Wavering Wood. Number 10. Agatha. Maybe I should take Agatha off my list too. I'm getting close to Watford now. I'll be at the station in a few minutes. Someone will have to come down from the school to fetch me. I used to save Agatha for last. I'd go all summer without thinking about her, then wait until I was almost to Watford before I'd let her back into my head. That way I wouldn't spend the whole summer convincing myself that she was too good to be true. But now, I don't know, maybe Agatha is too good to be true, at least for me. Last term, just before Penny and I got snatched by the humdrum, I saw Agatha with Baz in the Wavering Wood. I suppose I had sensed before that there might be something between them, but I never believed she'd betray me like that she'd cross that line. There was no time to talk to Agatha after I saw her with Baz. I was too busy getting kidnapped, then escaping. And then I couldn't talk to her over the summer because I can't talk to anybody. And now, I don't know. I don't know what Agatha is to me. I'm not even sure whether I've missed her. 3. Simon. When I get to the station, there's no one to meet me. No one I know, anyway. There's a bored-looking taxi driver who's written "Snow" on a piece of cardboard. "That's me," I say. He looks dubious. I don't look much like a public school toff, especially when I'm not in uniform. My hair's too short. I shave it every year at the end of term, and my trainers are cheap, and I don't look bored enough. I can't keep my eyes still. "That's me," I say again, a bit thuggishly. "Do you want to see my ID?" He sighs and drops the sign. "If you want to get dropped off in the middle of nowhere, mate, I'm not going to argue with you." I get in the back of the taxi and sling my bag down on the seat next to me. The driver starts the engine and turns on the radio. I close my eyes. I get sick in the back of cars on good days, and today isn't a good day. I'm nervous, and all I've had to eat is a chocolate bar and a bag of cheese and onion crisps. Almost there now. This is the last time I'll be doing this, coming back to Watford in autumn. I'll still come back, but not like this. Not like I'm coming home. "Candle in the Wind" comes on the radio, and the driver sings along. Candle in the wind is a dangerous spell. The boys at school say you can use it to give yourself more, stamina. But if you emphasize the wrong syllable, you'll end up starting a fire you can't put out. An actual fire. I'd never try it, even if I had call for it. I've never been good with double entendres. The car hits a pothole and I lurch forward, catching myself on the seat in front of me. "Belt up," the driver snaps. I do, taking a look around. We're already out of the city and into the countryside. I swallow and stretch my shoulders back. The taxi driver goes back to singing, louder now. "Never knowing who to turn to." Like he's really getting into the song. I think about telling him to belt up. We hit another pothole and my head nearly bangs against the ceiling. We're on a dirt road. This isn't the usual way to Watford. I glance up at the driver in the mirror. There's something wrong. His skin is deep green and his lips are red as fresh meat. Then I look at him, as he is, sitting in front of me. He's just a cabbie. Gnarled teeth, smashed nose, singing Elton John. Then back at the mirror. Green skin, red lips, handsome as a pop star. Goblin. I don't wait to see what he's up to. I hold my hand over my hip and start murmuring the incantation for the Sword of Mages. It's an invisible weapon. It's more than invisible. It's not even there until you say the magic words. The goblin hears me casting, and our eyes meet in the mirror. He grins and reaches into his jacket. If Baz were here, I'm sure he'd make a list of all the spells I could use in this moment. There's probably something in French that would do nicely. But as soon as my sword appears in my hand, I grit my teeth and slash it across the front seat, taking off the goblin's turning head and the headrest too. Voila. He keeps driving for a second, and then the steering wheel goes wild. Thank magic there's no barrier between us. I unbuckle my seatbelt and dive over the seat and the place where the goblin's head used to be to grab the wheel. His foot must still be on the gas. We're already off the road and accelerating. I try to steer us back, but I don't actually know how to drive. I jerk the wheel to the left, and the side of the taxi slams into a wooden fence. The airbag goes off in my face, and I go flying backwards. The car still smashing into something, probably more fence. I never thought I'd die like this. The taxi comes to a stop before I come up with a way to save myself. I'm half on the floor, and I've hit my head on the window, then the seat. When I eventually tell Penny about all this, I'm skipping the part where I took off my safety belt. I reach up over my head and pull the door handle. The door opens, and I fall out of the taxi onto my back in the grass. It looks like we've gone through the fence and spun out into a field. The engine is still running. I climb to my feet, groaning, then reach into the driver's window and turn it off. It's a spectacle in there. Blood all over the airbag, and the body, and me. I go through the goblin's jacket, but don't find anything besides a packet of gum and a carpet knife. This doesn't feel like the humdrum's work. There's no itchy sign of him in the air. I take a deep breath to make sure. Probably just another revenge run, then. The goblins have been after me ever since I helped the coven drive them out of Essex. They were gobbling up drunk people in club bathrooms, and the mage was worried about losing regional slang. I think the goblin who successfully offs me gets to be king. This one won't be getting a crown. My blade's stuck in the seat next to him, so I yank it out and let it disappear back into my hip. Then I remember my bag and grab that too, wiping blood on my grey tracky bottoms before I open the bag to fish out my wand. I can't just leave this mess here, and I don't think it's worth saving anything for evidence. I hold my wand up over the taxi and feel my magic scramble up to my skin. "Work with me here," I whisper. "Out, damned spot." I've seen Penelope use that spell to get rid of unspeakable things, but all it does for me is clean some blood off my trousers. I guess that's something. The magic is building up in my arm, so thick my fingers are shaking. "Come on," I say, pointing. "Take it away." Sparks fly out of my wand and fingertips. "Fuck me, come on." I shake out my wrist and point again. I noticed the goblin's head lying in the grass near my feet, back to its true green again. Goblins are handsome devils, but most devils are fairly fit. "I suppose you ate the cabbie," I say, kicking the head back towards the car. My arm feels like it's burning. "Into thin air," I shout. I feel a hot rush from the ground to my fingertips, and the taxi disappears, and the head disappears, and the fence disappears, and the road. An hour later, sweaty and still covered in dried goblin blood and that dust that comes out of airbags, I finally see the school buildings up ahead of me. It was only a patch of that dirt road that disappeared, and it wasn't much of a road to start with. I just had to make my way back to the main road, then follow it here. All the normals think Watford is an ultra-exclusive boarding school, which I guess it is. The grounds are coated in glamours. Ebb told me once that we keep casting new spells on the school as we develop them, so there's layer upon layer of protection. If you're a normal, all the magic burns your eyes. I walk up to the tall iron gate. The Watford School is spelled out on the top, and rest my hand on the bars to let them feel my magic. That used to be all it took. The gates would swing open for anyone who was a magician. There's even an inscription about it on the crossbar. "Magic separates us from the world. Let nothing separate us from each other." "It's a nice thought," the mage said when he appealed to the coven for stiffer defences. "But let's not take security orders from a 600-year-old gate. I don't expect people who come to my house to obey whatever's cross-stitched on the throw pillows. I was at that covered meeting with Penelope and Agatha. The mage had wanted us there to show what was at stake. The children, the future of our world. I didn't listen to the whole debate. My mind wandered off, thinking about where the mage really lived and whether I'd ever be invited there. It was hard to picture him with a house, let alone throw pillows. He has rooms at Watford, but he's gone for weeks at a time. When I was younger, I thought the mage lived in the woods when he was away, eating nuts and berries and sleeping in badger dens. Security at the Watford gate and along the outer wall has got stiffer every year. One of the mage's men, Penelope's brother, Primal, is stationed just inside today. He's probably pissed off about the assignment. The rest of the mage's team will be up in his office planning the next offensive, and Primal's down here checking in first years. He steps in front of me. "All right, Prem. Looks like I should be asking you that question." I look down at my bloody t-shirt. "Goblin." Primal nods and points his wand at me, murmuring a cleaning spell. He's just as powerful as Penny. He can practically cast spells under his breath. I hate it when people cast cleaning spells on me. It makes me feel like a child. "Thanks," I say anyway, and start to walk past him. Primal stops me with his arm. "Just a minute there," he says, raising his wand up to my forehead. "Special measures today. The mage says the humdrum's walking around with your face." I flinch, but try not to pull away from his wand. "I thought that was supposed to be a secret." "Right," he said. "A secret that people like me need to know if we're going to protect you." "If I were the humdrum," I say, "I could have already eaten you by now." "Maybe that's what the mage has in mind," Primal says. "At least then we'd know for sure it was him." He drops his wand. "You're clear. Go ahead." "Is Penelope here?" He shrugs. "I'm not my sister's keeper." For a second, I think he's saying it with emphasis, with magic, casting a spell. But he turns away from me and leans against the gate. There's no one out on the great lawn. I must be one of the first students back. I start to run, just because I can, upsetting a huddle of swallows hidden in the grass. They blow up around me, twittering, and I keep running. Over the lawn, over the drawbridge, past another wall, through the second and third set of gates. Watford has been here since the 1500s. It's set up like a walled city, fields and woods outside the walls, buildings and courtyards inside. At night, the drawbridge comes up and nothing gets past the moat and the inner gates. I don't stop running till I'm up at the top of Mama's house, falling against my door. I pull out the sword of mages and use it to nick the pad of my thumb, pressing it into the stone. There's a spell for this, to reintroduce myself to the room after so many months away, but blood is quicker and surer, and Baz isn't around to smell it. I stick my thumb in my mouth and push the door open, grinning. My room. It'll be our room again in a few days, but for now it's mine. I walk over to the windows and crank one open. The fresh air smells even sweeter now that I'm inside. I open the other window, still sucking on my thumb, and watch the dust motes swirl in the breeze and the sunlight, then fall back on my bed. The mattress is old, stuffed with feathers and preserved with spells, and I sink in. Merlin. Merlin and Morgan and Methuselah. It's good to be back. It's always so good to be back. The first time I came back to Watford, my second year, I climbed right into my bed and cried like a baby. I was still crying when Baz came in. "Why are you already weeping?" he snarled. "You're ruining my plans to push you to tears." I close my eyes now and take in as much air as I can. Feathers, dust, lavender. water from the moat, plus that slightly acrid smell that Baz says is the merwolves. Don't get Baz started on the merwolves. Sometimes he leans out our window and spits into the moat just to spite them. If he were here already, I'd hardly smell anything over his posh soap. I take a deep breath now, trying to catch a hint of cedar. There's a rattle at the door, and I jump to my feet, holding my hand over my hip and calling again for the Sword of Mages. That's 3 times already today. Maybe I should just leave it out. The incantation is the only spell I always get right. Maybe because it's not like other spells. It's more of a pledge. In justice, in courage, in defense of the weak, in the face of the mighty, through magic and wisdom and good. It doesn't have to appear. The Sword of Mages is mine, but it belongs to no one. It doesn't come unless it trusts you. The hilt materializes in my grip, and I swing the sword up to my shoulder just as Penelope pushes the door open. I let the sword drop. You shouldn't be able to do that, I say. She shrugs and falls onto Baz's bed. I can feel myself smiling. You shouldn't even be able to get past the front door. Penelope shrugs again and pushes Baz's pillow up under her head. If Baz finds out you touched his bed, I say, he's going to kill you. Let him try. I twist my wrist just so, and the sword disappears. You look a fright, she says. Ran into a goblin on the way in. Can't they just vote on their next king? Her voice is light, but I can tell she's sizing me up. The last time she saw me, I was a bundle of spells and rags. The last time I saw Penny, everything was falling apart. We'd just escaped the humdrum, fled back to Watford, and burst into the White Chapel in the middle of the end-of-year ceremony. Poor Elspeth was accepting an award for 8 years of perfect attendance. I was still bleeding from my paws, no one knew why. Penny was crying. Her family was there because everybody's families were there, and her mum started screaming at the mage. Look at them, this is your fault. And then her brother Primal got between them and started screaming back. People thought the humdrum must be right behind Penny and me, and started running from the chapel with their wands out. It was my typical end-of-the-year chaos times 100, and it felt worse than just chaotic. It felt like the end. Then Penelope's mum spelled their whole family away, even Primo. Probably just to their car, but it was still really dramatic. I haven't talked to Penny since. Part of me wants to grab her right now and pat her down head to toe just to make sure she's whole. But Penny hates scenes as much as her mum loves them. Don't say hello, Simon, she's told me, because then we'll have to say goodbye, and I can't stand goodbyes. My uniform is laid out at the end of my bed, and I start putting it away piece by piece. New grey trousers, new green and purple striped tie. Penelope sighs loudly behind me. I walk back to my bed and flop down, facing her, trying not to smile from ear to ear. Her face is twisted into a pout. What can possibly have got under your skin already? I ask. Trixie, she huffs. Trixie's her roommate. Penny says she would trade Trixie for 12 evil plotting vampires in a heartbeat. What's she done? Come back. You were expecting otherwise? Penny punches Baz's pillow again. Every year, she comes back more manic than she was the year before. First, she turned her hair into a dandelion puff. Then she cried when the wind blew it away. I giggle. In Trixie's defense, I say, she is half pixie, and most pixies are a little manic. Oh, and doesn't she know it? I swear she uses it as an excuse. I can't survive another year with her. I can't be trusted not to spell her head into a dandelion and blow. I swallow another laugh and try hard not to beam at her. Great snakes, it's good to see her. It's your last year, I say. You'll make it. Penny's eyes get serious. It's our last year, she says. Guess what you'll be doing next summer? What? Hanging out with me. I let my grin free. Hunting the humdrum? Fuck the humdrum, she says. We both laugh, and I kind of grimace because the humdrum looks just like me. An 11-year-old version of me. If Penny hadn't seen him too, I'd think I'd hallucinated the whole thing. I shudder. Penny sees it. You're too thin, she says. It's the tracksuit. Change then. She already has. She's wearing her grey pleated uniform skirt and an argyle jumper. Go on, she says. It's almost tea time. I smile again and jump off the bed, grabbing a pair of jeans and a purple sweatshirt that says Watford Lacrosse, Agatha plays. Penny grabs my arm when I walk past Baz's bed on the way to the bathroom. It's good to see you, she whispers. I smile, again. Penny makes my cheeks hurt. Don't make a scene, I whisper back. 4. Penelope. Too thin. He looks too thin. And something worse. Scraped. Simon always looks better after a few months of Watford's roast beef, and Yorkshire pudding, and tea with too much milk, and fatty sausages, and butter-scone sandwiches. He's broad-shouldered and broad-nosed, and when he gets too thin, his skin just hangs off his cheekbones. I'm used to seeing him thin like this every autumn. But this time, today, it's worse. His face looks chapped. His eyes are lined with red and the skin around them looks rough and patchy. His hands are red too, and when he clenches his fists, the knuckles go white. Even his smile is awful. Too big and red for his face. I can't look him in the eye. I grab his sleeve when he comes close, and I'm relieved when he keeps walking. If he didn't, I might not let go. I might grab him and hold him and spell us both as far away from Watford as possible. We could come back after it's all over. Let the mage and the pitches and the humdrum and everyone else fight the wars they seem to have their hearts set on. Simon and I could get a flat in Anchorage or Casablanca or Prague. I'd read and write, he'd sleep and eat, and we'd both live to see the far end of 19, maybe even 20. I'd do it. I'd take him away, if I didn't believe he was the only one who could make a difference here. If I stole Simon and kept him safe, I'm not sure there'd be a world of mages to come back to. 5. Simon. We practically have the dining hall to ourselves. Penelope sits on the table with her feet on a chair because she likes to pretend she doesn't care. There are a few younger kids, first and second years, at the other side of the hall, having tea with their parents. I notice them, children and adults, all trying to get a look at me. The kids will get used to me after a few weeks, but this will be their parents' only chance to get an eyeful. Most magicians know who I am. Most of them knew I was coming before I knew myself. There's a prophecy about me. A few prophecies, actually, about a super-powerful magician who'll come along and fix everything. And one will come to end us, and one will bring his fall. Let the greatest power of powers reign. May it save us all. The greatest mage, the chosen one, the power of powers. It still feels strange believing that that bloke's supposed to be me. But I can't deny it either. I mean, nobody else has power like mine. I can't always control it or direct it, but it's there. I think when I showed up at Watford, people had sort of given up on the old prophecies, or wondered if the greatest mage had come and gone without anybody ever noticing. I don't think anybody expected the chosen one to come from the normal world, from mundanity. A mage has never been born to normals. But I must have been, because magicians don't give up their kids. There's no such thing as magical orphans, Penny says. Magic is too precious. The mage didn't tell me all that when he first came to get me. I didn't know I was the first normal to get magic, or the most powerful magician anyone'd ever heard of. Or that plenty of magicians, especially the mage's enemies, thought he was making me up, some sort of political sleight of hand, a Trojan 11-year-old with baggy jeans and a shaved head. When I first got to Watford, some of the old families wanted me to make the rounds, to meet everyone who mattered, so they could check me out in person, kick my tires. But the mage wasn't having any of it. He says most magicians are so caught up in their own petty plots and power struggles that they lose sight of the big picture. I won't see you become anyone's pawn, Simon. I'm glad now that he was so protective. It'd be nice to know more magicians and to feel more a part of a community, but I've made my own friends, and I made them when we were young, when none of them were overly fussed about my great destiny. If anything, my celebrity status has been a liability for making friends at Watford. Everybody knows that things tend to explode around me, though no people have exploded yet. That's something. I ignore the staring from the other tables and help Penelope get our tea. Even though we go to an exclusive boarding school with its own cathedral and moat, nobody's spoiled at Watford. We do our own cleaning and, after our 4th year, our own laundry. We're allowed to use magic for chores, but I usually don't. Cook Pritchard does the cooking with a few helpers, and we all take turns serving at mealtimes. On weekends, it's help yourself. Penelope gets us a plate of cheese sandwiches and a mountain of warm scones, and I tear through half a block of butter. I eat my scones with big slabs of it so the butter melts on the outside but keeps a cold bite in the middle. Penny's watching me like I'm mildly disgusting, but also like she's missed me. "Tell me about your summer," I say between swallows. "It was good," she says. "Really good." "Yeah?" Crumbs fly out of my mouth. "My dad and I went to Chicago. He did some research at a lab there, and Micah and I helped." She loosens up as soon as she mentions her boyfriend's name. "Micah's Spanish is amazing. He taught me so many new spells. I think if I study the language more, I'll be able to cast them like a native." "How is he?" Penelope blushes and takes a bite of sandwich so she doesn't have to answer right away. It's only been a few months since I saw her last, but she looks different, more grown up. Girls don't have to wear skirts at Watford, but both Penelope and Agatha like to. Penny wears short pleated ones usually, with knee-high argyle socks in the school colours. Her shoes are the black sort with buckles, like Alice wears in Wonderland. Penny's always looked younger than she is. Everything about her is round and girlish. She has chubby cheeks and thick legs and dimples in her knees, and the uniform makes her seem even younger. But still, she's changed this summer. She's starting to look like a woman in little girl's clothes. "Micah's good," she says finally, pushing her dark hair behind her ears. "It's the most time we've spent together since he was here." "So the thrill isn't gone?" She laughs. "No, if anything, it felt real for the first time." I don't know what to say, so I tried to smile at her. "Ugh," she says. "Close your mouth." I do. "But what about you?" Penny asks. I can tell she's been waiting to interrogate me and can't wait any longer. She glances around us and leans forward. "Can you tell me what happened?" "What happened when?" "This summer." I shrug. "Nothing happened." She sits back, sighing. "Simon, it's not my fault that I went to America. I tried to stay.